All right, here in lesson 8.7, we're going to learn how to graph circles on the coordinate plane. This is kind of like back in algebra when we graphed lines and we used y equals mx plus b and we were able to graph lines. Well, it's going to be similar to that, except we're going to be graphing circles. We're not necessarily going to go into the reason why all of this works right now. We'll do that in a later course. But right here we have the equation for a circle, x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. And if something's in that form, the center of the circle is at hk, and the radius is r. So to graph the circle, we will graph our center. And from the center, we're going to go r units to the left, right, up, and down. And then we're going to use those 4 points to help us graph our circle. So let's get right to this. In this first one, our center is just a point, and it's really the way that I think of it, it's the opposite of what's in there. So the opposite, there's a 1 in there, it's going to be the opposite of that. And there's a 4 in there, it's going to be the opposite of 4, which is -4. So our center is at -1, -4. And then our radius is going to be the square root of this over here, because we see this is the radius squared, so we have to take the square root of it to get the radius. So from there, what we do is we graph our center, which is at -1, -4. And then we can go left 2 from the center, up 2 from the center, right 2 from the center, and down 2 from the center. And then we graph our circle. Now, I'm going to show you what not to do. Don't try to start at a point and kind of go directly over to the next point. If we do that, we end up with a shape like that, which doesn't look anything like a circle. So we want to make sure we make it rounded enough. So I'm going to make sure we make it pretty round and go out and around to hit all these points. And there is a little bit better circle. Still not that great, but it will do for us. So let's go to number 3. We'll go ahead and do 1, 3, 5, and 7 here. So can you think of what the center will be? The center is going to be opposite of +3, which is -3, and the opposite of +1, which is -1. And then our radius is going to equal the square root of that number, which the square root of 1 is just 1. So we can graph our center, -3, -1. It's right there. And then we're going to go up, left 1 from there, up 1, right 1, and down 1. And we have a pretty small circle here, radius of 1. So we can sketch the graph of that circle. Just moving on to number 5, a few more examples here just to get us to see different situations. This next one, we want to find the center. Center is the opposite of -4, which is 4. And then, looking at this, there's nothing added or subtracted to y. So what's the number for nothing added or subtracted to y? Well, that's 0. So if you ever just have the number squared, you're going to use 0 there. And then our radius, this is a little different as well. A couple new things to see here. We take this number and we take the square root of it. Well, that one doesn't work out as nicely as the last two, but it's still a number, so it's about 1.7. And so we can graph our circle. We go to our center, which is at 4, 0. And we're going to just approximate this. We're going to go left 1.7 from the center, up 1.7, right 1.7, and down 1.7. And we're going to go ahead and sketch our circle through those points. And there is the graph of that circle. And then our last one here that we'll do, number 7, our center. So we just saw what happens when we don't have anything added or subtracted to the variables before they're squared. So the center is just at 0, 0. And then the radius is at the square root of that number, the square root of 25, which is 5. So our center's at 0, 0. And our radius is at 5. So 5, we can go ahead and graph the circle, but 5 is a kind of an interesting number when we're graphing. If we remember, we have a Pythagorean triple of 3 squared plus 4 squared equals 5 squared. Which means if I go like right 3 and up 4, this length will be 5. Well, I want that length of 5 because I want a radius of 5. Or I could have gone right 4. Let's pick a different color. I could have gone right 4 and up 3, and that length will be 5. So if you have a radius of 5, you can actually put a few more points in there to help you be a little bit more accurate. So I'm going to go left 3 up 4, left 4 up 3, just putting in these other points here. And it can just help us get a more accurate circle. We could have done it without having these extra points, but it sure does help. And there's our circle, and that is graphing circles.